You don't have to have artist quality paints to enjoy botanical painting, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how I painted this lime with student grade paints. I've done a simple outline like this, which I've traced down from the photograph, and I provide you with a photograph for this tutorial, and I'll tell you later on how you can have access to that. Okay, these are Sennelier paints. These are student quality. I think these cost me about £40 from Jackson's, and I'm just using a few colours here: lemon, a green, Payne's grey and a brown, and all of these supplies I will put in the information box underneath this video, along with these brushes. One looks a little bit damaged there, but it's absolutely fine. This is my ceramic palette from Etcher, and we are good to go. Now, to begin with, I'm mixing the green yellow with a tiny bit of Payne's grey and the green yellow with a tiny bit of a lemon colour. Now this is going to be forming the outside edge of the lime like this, and we need this in a really watery consistency. I'm applying this with my number 8 size round. This one's from Etcher. Straight to the pencil line like this. You can see that I've done a really simple outline of the lime, and I'm just blending it in using the tip of my brush, which is damp, and I'm just blending it into the paper. I'm now adding a tiny bit of that lemon yellow with a tiny bits of a bit more yellow on the top there, and applying it straight onto the paper, as you can see, just to the middle, not where we've applied that first wash. And as soon as that paint hits that first colour, you can see that I'm just using my damp brush to merge those colours together as before. Now it's really important that your brush is damp, by which I mean you pat it on your kitchen paper and then blend it in. I have a full video explaining how I do this, which I will link on the top of your screen. You can see me here just dropping in a tiny bit of that green colour. For this part of the leaf, I'm just using a watery mix of Payne's grey with the green there, that's the green yellow, and I'm just applying this layer on like this. And this colour that you can see here is the same colour as before, with a tiny bit of the burnt umber, just to take out that greenness, because we want this to look really natural. If you're using student quality paints, really important thing is that you use a good quality paper. If you use student quality paints on a paper that maybe isn't that great, you might find that your paints go muddy, so your investment really should be on your paper. The round brush I'm going to be using in a moment from Rosemary & Co, they are super inexpensive. They cost around £4, I think. All the brushes I use are synthetic, so nothing fancy here, but I find that they are so good to create fine lines and detail, and I absolutely love them. So you don't necessarily have to go out and spend a ton of money on supplies to create a really good watercolour painting, no matter what you decide to paint. So this is a watered down version of the green colour, so that will be the green yellow with a tiny bit of Payne's grey to a watery consistency, and I'm applying this all over the leaf like this, as you can see, with my number 8 round from Etcher. So you can see me here just adding a tiny bit more of that bright green colour. This is my number 2 Snowdrop pointed round. This is from Rosemary & Co. I love these brushes. They have a fine point and are great for detail. So you can see me here working wet in wet. I've applied water to the bottom half of the lime, and I'm just dropping in those 2 colours, as you can see me doing here. This paper is absolutely wonderful for adding lots and lots of layers. This one's from Arches. It's a 300 GSM. It's a rough surface paper, and I use it all the time. I absolutely love it. And like I said, if you haven't got the budget to necessarily buy a ton of paints, make sure that your paper is the best that you can afford to buy, because that is where you're going to get your results. I'm adding a tiny bit of that lemon colour to the top of the lime like this, and just adding a bit just to give it a little bit of brightness. Now at the start of this video I said that we provide you with a simple outline and a reference photograph to work from, and if you want to have access to that, all you have to do is wait right until the end of the video, and I will put them both after the outro. If you are enjoying this video, could I ask you to give it a like? It's a free way of letting YouTube know that you're enjoying my content, and it means that more people can see it. can see me here just dropping in that colour. That's the darker green, which is the deep green Payne's grey with a tiny bit of burnt umber. And I'm using a mix of deep green with Payne's grey here. Now that that first layer is dry, I'm applying this to the leaf like this and just taking it over up to that first vein. Now we're going to be negatively painting around it, which simply means that we're going to be creating a little gap in between one vein and another like this, just so that it creates the illusion of the underside of this leaf, and you can see the leaves, like the little veins like this. You need a really steady hand to do this, and of course your paint must be absolutely dry, otherwise what you'll find is it just blurs into the existing wash, and we don't want that at this point. Every Tuesday here on YouTube, we release new content, and if this is something that you'd like to continue watching, you may want to consider subscribing to my channel and hitting that little bell on the side. That way you'll be notified every week when I upload new content and you won't miss out. Now today we are using student grade paints. This is great if you're starting out painting and you don't want to splash out on expensive paints. It's a great way of practicing how to use watercolour. If botanical painting is something that you really enjoy and you really want to level up on your painting, we do have a Patreon where we supply full-length, much longer tutorials over there that you won't find here on YouTube. They are exclusive for my patrons, and in case this is something that interests you, let's just take a little look. If you love botanical painting and want to know more, then you may want to join our Patreon. We have different membership levels so that you can take your botanical painting to the next level. With our Clematis level, you will have a full-length, in-depth tutorial every month, and if you'd like to make even more progress, then check out our Rose level, where we now have a mentorship offering feedback to help you grow. You won't find any of our Patreon tutorials here on YouTube, and you can cancel your membership at any time. So if you want to take your botanical painting to the next level, then take a look. I'll put the link in the description underneath this video. So membership starts for the full tutorials at £7 plus VAT per month, and you can leave any time. So why not take a look and treat yourself to some much longer tutorials so that you can really learn how to paint with watercolour. Okay, so you can see me here adding the burnt umber to that mix on the outside edge here, and just using that number 2 pointed round, Snowdrop pointed round, and working negatively around that little stem there. You can see how that's brought that to life, and just building up the colours as I see fit, just to create a little bit of form, a little bit of interest to stop them from looking flat. This little piece didn't take me very long to paint at all, probably an hour or so, but remember, painting isn't about rushing, it's about taking your time and just having fun with it and getting to know your watercolours. I love doing this. It's my water glaze. Once the first washes are dry, I go over with just a plain water glaze to merge everything together and then let it dry before we apply our other layers. Once again, the same process, just dotting in those colours, picking up the darker values and just dropping it on the underside of the lime here, using a kind of stippling motion. Notice how I'm using the tip of my brush to outline that lime a little bit, just to give it a bit more definition on the outside edge where it hits the paper. This makes it look really, really professional and gives it that nice shape and really makes it stand out. You can see that this paint, it really does take the layering rather well, but that is largely down to the paper. As I said earlier on, it plays a really important part in your painting process. But of course, if you haven't got any of the good stuff, doesn't matter. Practice and get used to handling your paints. That's what it's all about. Taking the brown colour over the stem here, and I'm going to be working around that little fold to create that negative shape as before. You notice that this brush is absolutely incredible for adding fine detail. I'm not switching brushes all the time, I'm just using this one to add the finer points, and I'll continue to use this throughout the rest of the tutorial. Just adding a little bit of detail on the stem. This first wash is dry, so I'm going over this with a little bit more of that burnt umber to add a bit more detail to the stem here. Once again, negatively painting around that area and using that soft damp brush to blend those colours together. Adding a bit more Payne's Grey to darken up that green. And we're now going over that first wash where we created that negative space for that vein, and just going over them to enhance them here and there. It's looking a little bit flat at the moment, so we need to add some more colour to give it a bit more tonal variation. Cleaning the brush, patting it dry, and I've decided to go back over and add a little bit more of that bright green. You can see I'm taking it over the vein now because that paint is dry, it's not going to shift around too much. I was a little bit hasty there on my stem. I put that paint in and you can see it's bleeding over the stem a little bit because that paint wasn't dry, but it doesn't matter. I'll show you how I lift that out in just a second. Blending it through in the usual way, just picking up that darker value and dropping it in wet around that little leaf that we can see folding over there. And the same on the other side. I've actually done another video using these Sennelier paints where I've painted this really pretty rose, and I'll put an information card on the top of your screen so that you can click through and watch that one later, so that you can give that a go as well if you want to paint with your student grade paints. Deciding to add in a tiny bit more of that Payne's Grey to darken up that green tone and applying it to the first wash as before, once again building up that layer. Negatively painting around that shape. This is my eradicator brush from Rosemary & Co, and I'm using it damp just to lift out that error from earlier on. Okay, these are great brushes for blending actually. You can use them to merge your colours together on the paper, but they're really good for lifting out any paints or any errors, and I highly recommend them for your kit. Again, inexpensive brushes, they only cost a few pounds I think. I can't remember the exact price, but check it out. I'll link it in the information box underneath this video. Bit of detail here on the stem. Blending it through in the usual way. And once again use my clear water glaze to merge those colours. I felt that the veining was a little bit too stark, so by just going over it with water you can see that I've merged them together. Now of course in doing this the colours will kind of lose their definition a little bit, so once it's dry I'll need to go over it again just to add a bit more definition. That's the joy with watercolour, you can just keep building up your layers, making sure that each one is dry as you work through, and you can see the depth of colour that I've got here. It's absolutely wonderful. I love these paints, really good value for money. Just sharpening up those edges. And it's just a case of repeating the process as I work through. So at this point, as always, I'm going to say thank you for watching. Make sure that you stay right until the end of this video so that you can pause it and screenshot those two images that I'm going to be giving you, the outline and of course the reference photograph. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you've enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.